All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. Another Friday afternoon dump, but I think a really good week overall for the Bitcoin miners. We'll talk about what's going on with Bitcoin. Welcome everybody. Hello, George. George, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you not hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm gonna say what? What? Not again.
No, we're all good. Everybody out there, let us know. Make sure you can hear us, see us. Make sure.
Tom, this was a great. Tom, this wasn't a good week. This was a great week.
This was a great week. I think it was a great week for Bitcoin miners. Yeah. You had a really good week. And so we'll see if anybody else did some of what you did, which was some.
Do you know the difference between a recession and a depression, Tom?
I do, but go ahead.
The difference is a recession is when it happens to you. A depression is when it happens to me. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going the wrong way with that, but you ended up in the right place.
Yeah.
That's right.
As long as you made money, it doesn't matter what anybody else did.
That's right. The real Gary Ginsler, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. Said congrats to everybody for surviving Hell Week. Yeah, this actually was our Wednesday of CPI and the Fed. This could have gone any which way. And the reality is, we'll take a look at the markets. The markets are at, once again, all-time highs. And the thing is, what we've talked about this, when the market hits an all-time high, the next thing that tends to happen is it hits a new series of new all-time highs. So, you know, that's the more likely case scenario. Of course, nothing is certain, and none of this is financial advice, of course. And while you're at it, if you could please do us a favor and smash the like button. We got 16 likes, George. We're going for 100 likes. Helps the stream out in real time. It is much appreciated. So if you would be so kind. Robert Anderson, who's a member, said this is like the 27th hell week. Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's week after week. But the Bitcoin miners raged this week. Even this Friday, I mean, yes, look. So if you take a look at the big board of Bitcoin miners here, it's mostly red, but on a day where Bitcoin, you can see, this is where Bitcoin was yesterday. The gold line is where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday. So if we look at, I look at IBIT right here, which is BlackRock's ETF. It was down 1.58%. So Bitcoin was down 1.6% day over day. For the most part, the Bitcoin miners, you know, the larger ones really didn't behave that badly. Marathon and Riot continue to underperform for a couple of weeks in a row here. But, you know, CleanSpark was down 1.4. That's less than Bitcoin. Bitfarms was up. BitDeer was up. Core Scientific was up. So it was a mixed bag today. But on the week, when I go to the weekly, which I will, this is a continuation of an 8-week period where the Bitcoin miners are absolutely on fire. For the last 2 months, these have been some of the best stocks in the stock market. And I feel like the retail, a lot of retailers got out at the wrong time, which just seems to be what happened. So congratulations, you know, everybody who's here. I know, you know, you're not that group. And, but the first 3.5 months of the year were brutal for Bitcoin miners. And, you know, I was just, you know, the comments section was just, you know, this is dead money. These stocks are garbage. They're going to zero, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to look at the last 2 months. I mean, some of these have doubled or tripled in a couple of months here. So, you know, those are astronomical moves for an equity. So, like the real Gary Gensler said, congratulations. If you guys have done one of two things, if you bought and hold, dollar cost averaged in, all those things, you know, then life's probably been pretty good to your portfolio for the last few months after a rough beginning of the year. Or, you know, George has taken a different approach lately. I'll let you tell everybody what you're doing, George.
I've just come to understand how CleanSpark works. And I'm afraid of everything, even my shadow. And so I just get in and get out, and I just keep doing it every day. And it's been very, very consistent for me.
So George has been day trading, and this is I if you're going to do this, I think this is the way a lot of successful day traders do. They get kind of a beat on a specific stock rather than, being all over the place. George has been looking at the price action on CleanSpark, and it's been reliably doing something pretty specific.
Yeah.
And he's had a really good run here trading those moves. So, there's more than one way to do this. So if you're making money, however you're making it, obviously, congratulations.
Tom, I am doing day trading, but I would say it's more like swing trading because like sometimes you just know, like for an example, CleanSpark just did not take off today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it didn't do its thing today, but you still got in and out, I think, or are you holding over the weekend?
No, I'm holding over the weekend this time. Because
okay, so then that is now that one's a swing trade.
Let's be honest. CleanSpark never got back to where I thought it would get back to today, and I don't expect us to have another bad week in Bitcoin next week.
You think we're gonna have a good week next week?
The 24, what is it? The 21st? I think we've got to wait for the next real major movement in Bitcoin.
The 20 what?
Hang on, I'm telling you. Hang on. I have to look it up.
Oh, yeah, I just looked at the poll. Yeah, for the last 30 days, we have been stuck, within 10 subs of the exact same number. It's bizarre. So I don't know what's going on. So if you're here and if you're not subscribed and you feel like it, you can subscribe to the channel. We're at 32 likes. Also, if you could do us a favor and smash the like button, we would appreciate that as well. It helps the stream. This makes all the difference to this stream because we turn off our ad revenue, so they don't want to show this. So the only way to get it out there is for you guys to help us and smash the like button. So it would be much appreciated. Sorry, George, go ahead. Oh, I want to get to midway before
CleanSpark to 100. Right? Yeah, it is amazing how well this is working. And the reason why I think it's working so well is because they have to sell shares to raise money. Right?
Yeah, and they're selling into strength. That seems to be what's happening. There's opening, and they're not the only ones doing this, but you've got a beat on that one, and there's a few others that are acting similarly. I just want to get to Midway, who gave us a super chat. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. Cipher quietly had a great week, up 23% on strong buy volume. Just $1.5 billion market cap still, and they can be at 35 exahash next year with 2,500 plus hodl. So that is all true, and I think it was Midway and a couple others pointed out like they thought maybe Cipher was going to be the next one to run, and it seems like it is. And it's funny to say just $1.5 billion market cap because just over a year ago, none of the Bitcoin miners, well, it was about a year and a half ago, it got down to the point where there was not one Bitcoin miner that had $1 billion market cap. Now, pretty much all of the larger Bitcoin miners, there's 6 or 7 or maybe 8 of them now that are over $1 billion. Some are over 3, 4, over 5 billion. So now a lot of that has to do with a lot of stock dilution. So that's not just that they've increased in price. They've, got a lot of additional shares of stocks, but these are much bigger, much more mature companies. And I think it was Cantor Fitzgerald that came out and issued, a buy on 7 of these companies and really went through why they thought the companies that have scaled up, that are, these $1 billion plus Bitcoin miners that have scaled up, that have the liquidity, that have the growth plans, are going to be hugely successful. And, they're all cash flow positive even right now. And, it should get better as time goes by. Which is what we've been saying here on this channel for, years.
I bought a new pump for my pond, and it just came in. This is the smallest pump I've ever seen. Oh, sorry.
let's see. So CleanSpark to 100 is doing some of what you're doing, George. That's
Nice. Please, how do you say this? Ehanrun? Hey guys, sending out hugs. Thanks for the channel. I have several different positions in CleanSpark. My $4.11 average position I'm holding until $28. I'm also doing what George is doing, trading CleanSpark. Wow, that's awesome, dude. 411.
So that's what's great, and congratulations on that. And for and it's never too late. And I don't even think now it's too late. But for those that have been here for a long time, and we have a lot of members that have been at least subscribers to the channel for years, and during the tough months in 2022, and we were dollar cost averaging in, and you end up with averages like that, right? CleanSpark was trading at $3 or $4 for 6 or 8 months. Bitfarms was trading at it got down under 50 cents at one point. So, even though it seems like it's nowhere right now, from 50 cents, that's up 500%. And there's a lot of them. Most of the Bitcoin miners from their low in the crypto winter are up anywhere from 500 to 1,000% already. And now they're not back to where they were in the last cycle. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, depending on when you got in, how much you dollar cost averaged in. I know some people make money and some people have lost money. I still have a position that's in the red. My position in Riot is still in the red, and it's one of my bigger positions. So, but I'm not getting rid of it. And I have a similar cost basis in CleanSpark because of what I just talked about. CleanSpark and Bitfarms were the two through the crypto winter that I continued to really just dollar cost average relentlessly into those two when they were down at those low numbers.
So Tom, will you offset any loss that you have on Riot from the gains that you will have on CleanSpark and Bitfarms?
If it depends what happens. I don't feel like I'm going to end up being in that position, because I really still plan on, I still think my price target for almost all of the Bitcoin miners I'm holding, well, all that I'm holding, is much higher than it is today. So I still expect to sell Riot at a big profit. Now, having said that, I've been on record that, the next 90 days, and really now it's more like 75 days, I want to see some more out of Riot. So the next couple of monthly operational updates, I do want to see the progress that they've been promising. And if I don't get it, that would be the first one that I would maybe think about changing my strategy on. But I'm not there yet. It is still my intention. I think they're going to do what they said that they were going to do. It may take a little longer. It already has, but so I have been doing a little bit more swing trading with options. So shorter term options, which I will say, please be careful. That is not financial advice. Short-term options, 1 or 2 week expiration options, you don't have much time to be right. So you're much better off in longer term options. They're much safer, but to George's point, a lot of these have been doing some reliable stuff, so you can get in and out of them. I either make my win or do my stop loss and move on. So, but that's my very, very small dollars. By the way, Bitcoin, since the market
I'm gonna ask him that question. What is your exit plan, Tom? Do you have an exit plan?
I do have an exit plan. So on all of these stocks, I plan on taking profits, but based on, previous cycles, and until I see something that shows me that, that we're going to do something dramatically different, this cycle still resembles previous cycles. So for the Bitcoin miners, usually somewhere from 8 months to maybe 15 or 16 months after the halving, that's when the giant run up happens in the Bitcoin miners. So we're, if everything happens typically, we're still not even to the part where these start running yet. Now, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen this time. That's what's happened in the previous cycles. So that's my exit strategy. I think Bitcoin is nowhere near its peak for this cycle, right? We're now three and a half months into really going sideways. We hit 74,000 back in March. We're, at 65,800 as we speak. So this is part of that period of time. And George has been saying for a while, this could go on for months and months. So, but the good news is, as Bitcoin consolidates sideways for several months, finally the Bitcoin miners have started to make their move. But the first move for them is just to catch up to what Bitcoin's doing. The next move is, the whole reason to invest in these is you expect that they will outperform Bitcoin over a longer period of time. So at the peak of this cycle, I would hope that my Bitcoin miners did better than Bitcoin itself. So I will take a lot of profits, probably mostly, somewhere from, the second quarter of 2025 until the end of the year of 2025. And I'm not going to dump everything, but I intend to take significant, if all goes according to plan, that is my profit-taking part of this cycle. And I may move some of that into just straight Bitcoin. That may be the time I take my money and move it into Bitcoin, because I don't want to, I still think Bitcoin has, we're still, as hard as it is to believe, I still feel like we're early on Bitcoin. Right? From a big picture standpoint, where's it going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? I think we'll someday look back and go, man, Bitcoin's 65,000. I wish I had bought a bunch, then. Corey, thanks for the super chat, said, Tom, talk about the buyout. Is Bitfarms red pill?
Red pill time, baby.
I got a bunch of articles I pulled up. There's been a flurry of activity on the Bitfarms Riot situation. So is it time to get into that?
Yes.
And Barry's pointing out, Tom spent ages talking about the Riot hostile takeover on the member stream. So I did do an ultra deep dive on the member stream. I will, and some stuff has happened even since then. So I will talk about it and bring a little bit up to speed, because this is a wild situation.
You don't have to go as deep as we did. You know what I mean?
No, but I'd like to at least talk about the stuff. I'd like to at least talk about the stuff that's happened since then. And, this is an ongoing saga.
Saga, yes, saga.
So,
or I like to call it's an ongoing poker game. But go on.
Yeah, that's very apt given Jason's propensity for playing poker. So, let's get to, I'm going to start here. This came out yesterday. Bitfarms enters into an agreement to develop 120 megawatts in the U.S. and provides 2025 guidance to over 35 exahash. First U.S. large-scale site supports 8 exahash in 2025 with deployment of 600 petahash in so a little bit in 2024, but most of this is later in 2025. So this is a deal in Pennsylvania. It's for 120 megawatts, and so this is more geographical diversification for Bitfarms. So they're providing now, and a little bit of this, I take a little bit of this with a grain of salt, because they're guiding to 35 exahash, but that's a little different than putting a press release that they put in a purchase order to get to 35 exahash. So they're 21 exahash. We already know they did an at-the-market offering. They put a purchase order in. They're buying the machine. So now they're saying, we're going to do more. We're going to get to 35. But I like this. In the back and forth, it feels like Riot has been winning this battle. And I think this was the first. Some of the stuff that Bitfarms has done, I think, has been a little futile. But this is what I think people want to see. And the market reacted very positively to this. Bitfarms ran up a lot on this. There's the bid, Riot's takeover bid was $2.30. I think everybody thought that was ridiculous. I will tell you, I personally think that's a ridiculous number. I don't think it's going to happen at that number, but I do think that, Riot has by no means given up. So while this is happening, let's go to what Riot did. So Riot reported they now own 14% of Bitfarms. So this goes up and up and up. they owned when they went public with this bid, and they made the bid about a month earlier, and then they went public with it in May. They owned 9.25%. So they now own 14%, which gets us to on June 10th, Bitfarms announced Bitfarms adopts a shareholder rights plan. So this is basically a poison pill type of a scenario. And this plan kicks in. I want to get to... Do they say it in this one? Let me see if I can find a... Here we go. So they basically put a poison plan pill in that kicks in at the 15% threshold. So if Riot gets over 15%, effectively there's a massive stock dilution, not for existing investors. Really, the dilution will only be to Riot. Now, whether or not this, happens and or if it gets, this could go into a legal battle. But Riot's now approaching. They're at 14%. This kicks in at 15%. So they're knocking on the door. So we're going to see who blinks first. I
call that Monday, Tom, just so you know.
Yeah, and my thought was this was a little bit of a bluff type of and this is my opinion. I thought they put this out there to basically say, "Whoa, Riot, slow down on, buying shares. If you want to buy us out, we need to go into some good faith talks." Both sides are claiming the other side really isn't participating in good faith talks. I will say, as an outsider and a shareholder of both of these companies, I do think a bid for $2.30, it should have been summarily dismissed, which it was. I feel like that's a ludicrously low bid. And, if Bitfarms executes on what they said they're going to do, if they're, they said they would be at 12 exahash by June 30th. So which would be nearly a double in their exahash. So if they execute on that, and then 21 exahash by the end of the year. So if those two things happen, this is not a $2.30 company. That was a $950 million offer. That's just, I think almost everybody here would have put a price target more than double that on Bitfarms, in the next 12 to 18 months. So it was a very lowball offer. So I don't know if it was with the intention to eventually negotiate out to a different number. I don't know what's going on here, but this is now a hostile situation, period. So, at the end of a hostile situation, there's a winner and a loser at best, or a loser and a loser.
I don't think there's ever been a case where it's a loser and a loser.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure there's been a case, but, the
longer this protracts, the worse it is for Bitfarms. For Riot, if they don't end up getting this, then in the short term, they're going to dump, maybe 14% of the stock back onto the market. Because if this doesn't go through and they give up, they're not going to be a 14% shareholder in one of their direct competitors. So they're either going to take this over or give up.
It's going to so next week could be the week.
I think so. I think the rubber's going to meet the road next week. They're at 14%, and that was yesterday. So
dude, is that not insane?
Right, and some seekers saying, what if Riot does a rug pull on Bitfarms? So they could, right? They could just dump all these shares. But having said that,
I don't think they would do that because it wouldn't be in their best interest to do that.
At this point, they'll be losing money on their shares if they do a rug pull. So it's not a little bit of money for them.
But here's what everybody forgets: Bitfarm doesn't trade that much stock. They've been a very slow moving company with very minimum, purchases during the day. I mean, look at just since this Riot thing has taken off, it's gotten hot. But before that, it was probably one of the lowest Bitcoin mining movement of stocks in a day.
They don't. Riot, Marathon, and CleanSpark have just a level of adoption that, the number of shares traded is dramatically more than Bitfarms. You're right. It's now and the stock prices are higher. So, should be, from a dollar
Pull up
volume,
the
it's not even close.
pull up the trading volume of Bitfarms a month ago, and then pull it up now, and you see what I mean. It's just so much more than it was ever before. There was nothing going on. No one really cared for Bitfarms. You were their biggest fan, Tom. Right? I mean,
I've been pounding the
it.
table on Bitfarms for a long, long time, whether I end up being right or wrong. So they had on yesterday 54 million shares traded. But if you go back, you're right. I mean, there were 11 million, 9 million, 10 million.
Yeah,
This was in April.
nothing.
So, they're
And that was probably already the people that knew were already in, you know what I mean? Were already in the stock.
But even remember, when they trade 12 million, they're only at $2 or $3 stock. That's not the same as Marathon at 15 or 20 or $25 trading, sometimes 5 times this many shares or more.
I think it could be a very interesting week. Now, if let's say for some reason Bitfarm goes through with what they go through, what do you think is going to happen with their stock? I mean, they're going to automatically be in another lawsuit.
You're saying if they kick in, if they do their dilution poison pill plan, I would assume that Riot will take whatever legal avenues are available to them at that point. And Bitfarms is already in a lawsuit. They already don't have a CEO. So that's the other side of the equation. Like, that's why I said, until this announcement, I felt like they were kind of, losing, and publicly, they were kind of losing the battle. But I think this was an important announcement on their part, and the market reacted. I mean, with a $2.30. So once that bid came in, this was trading between $2.15 and $2.32 for weeks. And now you'll see it's at $2.87. It was over $3. I don't know if that was pre-market or during the market. Let's take a look. But it did get over 3 for a while today. Today's range. So that was pre-market. And during regular hours, it got to $2.96. But you see, the $2.30 offer is not happening, in my opinion. I mean, it's just not happening. But that doesn't mean something's not going to happen. Robert Anderson said, Tom, will you hold any through the down cycles? Yes, Robert. I don't want to just totally sell 100% of all of these. I think, for the ones that by the end of this cycle, I think we're going to be even more crystal clear on what's the group going forward. This group's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. We've been talking about winners and losers. I think some of these are just going to be insignificant. Some of them are going to go away altogether. And some of them are going to pull away from the pack. So, the ones that the ones that have scaled up to a certain point that I think are going to be, good companies and going forward indefinitely. I will hold, but I will take a bunch of profits. I think it's important.
Do you have any ANY?
No, I have none of the micro cap or nano cap stocks.
Okay. I thought he said, will you hold any, meaning the stock any?
Oh.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't hold any of the stock ticker any ANY.
Right. I think that's what he was asking. Would you hold it through? You see what I mean?
No, I would not buy that or hold it. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I was going to say, that's why I was like, what are you saying? You would hold any? You're out of your freaking mind, dude. Now, listen, if you want to play with it, that's not, you know what I mean? But that's just not going to probably be a winner, in my opinion.
No, and I think I read today or yesterday their CEO sold some shares. Not that that's the end of the world.
Well, and I hate to say it, but when I can't say it, I just say when you start making decisions based on the climate of the stock market, that's politically correct, then you know that company is going out of business.
It's not a good sign usually.
Yeah, no, it's like, geez, do you want that? I don't want that position. Do you? Heck no.
Robert was just talking about he's clarifying. He was talking about the minor stocks in general, or you can hold any of the minor
Okay,
stocks.
okay. I thought you meant any. Is anybody in any?
I'm guessing not too many.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I wasn't. You can see why I could get that confused, right?
Yeah, I mean, there happens to be a Bitcoin mining stock with the ticker any. I don't know why that's their ticker. Sphere 3D is their company, but that's their stock ticker for now.
That poll should be, where's Bitcoin going?
Yeah, absolutely. Where's Bitcoin going next? Because you can see I put a line in at $66,000. We are below that line and we're threatening closing a daily candle below that line. I've seen a lot of other people with a line at $67,000 and we closed the day. Let's go to the daily. I believe yesterday's daily candle closed below. So this closed at 66,735. So we've already closed below 67,000. It looks like we're going to close below 66,000 today, although the day's not over yet, so we could get a run between now and the end of the day.
Really tight on these things. If you think it's going higher than 68, then take the 67 to 68.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It'd be interesting to see.
There's some momentum down here. I mean, you know, this has been a rough pullback. And it's classic because, you know, optimism was high. We keep getting rejected. We got rejected, and then and I really did think I got fooled this time. I thought we would break out here and we just absolutely got rejected, and it just, you know, this same thing happened. Sorry, just the last time. So it's not like I shouldn't have seen it coming, but you know, you don't know. And it turns out we got rejected. So now the question is, how low do we go? You know, before we turn back around and get some momentum. And I'm going to go to, you know, one of the things that's going on, this second leg down, and it was not simultaneous, but the Fed, when the Fed put out their new dot plot, and actually almost right after Jerome Powell got done talking, Bitcoin was going sideways while he was talking. As soon as he finished, you know, it started to the downside, and that was actually this day that was a green candle. But you can see we were way up over 70,000. So, you know, that was on Wednesday after CPI data came out and was, you know, considered positive and favorable. We were up over 70, and now, you know, we're under 66. So there was a pretty big move to the downside in the second half of this week. And we're at kind of a key point here. You can see, I mean, I don't want to have too many lines on here. I already do, but like, you know, this was on May 16th, which was just by the end of the weekend, this will have been 1 month ago. So that's a line at around 65,000. So almost every $1,000, you can kind of find a little bit of support or resistance. So I don't know where we go from here. We have been going very sideways on the weekend. So if you guys notice, the volatility on Saturday and Sunday has been extremely minimal. So it's all about the ETFs right now. So when the market opens on Monday, you know, if the ETFs are buying, we get some strength. If the ETFs are selling, you know, and we had a long buying streak in a row. And now, you know, yesterday, I think I have this somewhere. Yesterday, we had, you know, decent, I think like $260 million in outflows. I think I have let me find this. Bitcoin ETFs see 226 million in outflows led by Fidelity. So if we look, BlackRock was the only one with an inflow yesterday. This was June 13th yesterday. So Grayscale, $62 million out. Fidelity had $106 million of outflow. ARK Invest had $53 million. ARK Invest is the most volatile of all of these. They tend to have huge days of inflows and huge days of outflows, but this was the end of it. We had a 19-day in a row trend. It actually ended before this day, so we've had a couple of days of outflows, and you can see, that latter half of the week was not good, and it has to do with this. So there's a big correlation between what Bitcoin's doing and what the ETFs are doing, but there's a second correlation that we've been talking about for a long time on the channel, and that is the DXY. So, this is the daily chart, and you can see yesterday was a big green candle. Today is a green candle. We're back above even this purple line. So, we had a nice period where it looked like the DXY was pulling back. But a few things happened. Number one, the EU lowered interest rates. So now the Fed's running behind other central banks that are already starting to loosen up and lower interest rates. So, and, then we put out a dot plot that essentially, I think I have those here. I'll just show you these real quick. Not that any...
Did you hear, I guess, is the BRICS alive now? Do you know that, if it is?
I thought that was this week, but I didn't really see anything.
No, I was wondering, oh my goodness. We're up so high on the euro. It's crazy. The only thing we're down on really is the British pound.
Yeah, I mean, you can see this green line and was a 20-year high for the dollar. This green line. So now we're 2 years into hanging around a 20-year high for strength of the US dollar. Now, this does not correlate to inflation, so I want to be clear because a lot of people might think, the dollar's losing value and there's a lot of inflation, and that is true. What this is how strong is the dollar versus other currencies around the world. So, the dollar continues to be at really historically high levels, which is not good for Bitcoin. It's not good for the Bitcoin miners. And you can see this correlation. I mean, here's this period where, we're going up and, we got Bitcoin pulling back. So there have been a few times where this correlation broke a little bit and Bitcoin did its thing, especially when the ETFs got running at the beginning. This correlation broke a bit, but this is a very strong correlation. So, and this is a part of what's holding while the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are at all-time highs, the Russell 2000, which is mid-cap, small-cap stuff, and all of the risk-on assets, all of the Bitcoin miners, they're being hindered by this strength in the dollar, as is Bitcoin. And it's not like it's destroying Bitcoin. I mean, we still did take out our previous all-time high prior to the halving, and we're still, within a stone's throw. If I go back to the chart, I mean, we were above, on Wednesday, we were above our previous all-time high from the previous cycle. So, we've been hanging out in a range. The question is, are we about to exit that range and go back to the bottom? We've been hanging out more in the middle of this range. The top of this range, we only hit one time. We hit a new all-time high. We've been hanging out in the middle of this range, but we did get lower than this. So are we going to make another move back down? Let's see what the poll is saying. So where's Bitcoin going next week? 67 to 68,000 is 43%. So that was the highest choice. 64K or lower is in second place at 30%, and that was the lowest choice. So we're very split on where Bitcoin is going. I think it's all on the table. It's super, super hard. This is the hardest part about Bitcoin right now, and I think, it's going to last for quite some time. We're going sideways, and they could do this, if previous cycles are any indicator, they could do this for months and months. So, for those of you that are swing trading this and doing things like that, there may be some sense to this. JR is saying swing trading opportunity. Yeah, I mean, with Bitcoin itself, with the Bitcoin miners, there's been a lot of swing trading opportunities for sure. I mean, just look at what's happened just right here. I mean, You know, we had this big run up and then we pulled back. Then we ran up and now we've pulled back. I mean, if you're swing trading that now, you know, it's real easy to look at the swing trades after they're, you know, all already done. But, you know, if you're paying attention to some of these stocks, they are trading in some reliable trading ranges. So until we break out, now some of the Bitcoin miners have had breakouts. So I want to go to that chart and talk about what the Bitcoin miners have been doing, what they did this week, and what they've been doing since, you know, we kind of, I'm hesitant to say called, but we talked about, we felt very strongly April 16th was the bottom for the Bitcoin miners. We've been tracking it ever since that day. So I want to just show you a couple of these charts because I think it has played out exactly that way. And it wasn't rocket scientists. Sometimes it's, you know, nobody ever gets the bottom exactly right or the top exactly right. But on a short-term basis, that appeared to be a pretty clear washout on that day and a bottoming out. And it's just so happened that it has played out that way. So this is
look at that. Cleanspark to 100. We could get back to 59. Somebody thinking like I'm thinking. Wow.
There's no question that we could get back to 59. I mean, that's
I thought 57 to, you know, 59 is where I thought we were going.
I didn't feel like we were going back there, but I will never say that, you know, that's not going to happen. We're if we go back to the one day, that's inside of our range. I mean, we got down to 56. So you can see here at 60-ish, we touched 60 a lot. These couple of days here, all of these days here. So, I mean, it's not like it's a ridiculous prediction to say that we may go retest some of these numbers before we finally get this stupid green line. This has been brutal resistance. Somewhere just over 71,000 to 71,500. That's just been, you know, 4 times we really tested this. You can see multiple candle wicks above it here. We had a daily close above it here. Couple of days here and then 3 days here, and you know, we're 0 for 4 on this. So I do think wherever we go to the downside, it's reasonable to expect that at some point we will retest the high side. The other thing worth noting is there was a bunch of liquidity down at around $66,000. Liquidity is the wrong word. Potential liquidations. People are very bullish. So there's a group of people very bullish, and then there's a group of people that are shorting the heck out of this. There's a pair trade where people have been buying the ETFs and shorting the futures. So, you know, somewhere up around 72,000. If we broke through that, there would be a monumental amount of shorts that get liquidated. But somewhere in this 66,000 and even down to 65,000, there was a lot of longs that were going to get liquidated. And I do think that's what happened this afternoon. So you got your Friday afternoon sell-off. You got some liquidations that were just there for the taking. And, you know, big money, if they want to push Bitcoin down, you know, when they're in striking distance, they can push it down and just liquidate everybody. So that, and those are the people trading on leverage. So, you know, we always say, please be careful. If you're trading on 10x, 20x, 50x, 100x leverage, just understand, I mean, your money could disappear in seconds.
Clock pump is on.
On the 5 o'clock pump?
5 o'clock pump.
Yeah.
It's funny that sometimes on Fridays it doesn't happen until Monday, but sometimes it happens.
It would be nice. In my mind, I would get a little comfort if somehow we did manage to close above 66,000. Having
they're
said
fighting
that,
for it.
Yeah,
they're fighting for it, Tom.
It looks like it. I mean, we got almost there and pulled back a little, so we'll see what happens. Again, I expect the next Saturday and Sunday, we're now, you know, the last 4 or 5 weekends in a row have been very flat. So I think that's going to be a real trend going. It could break it, you know, on any given weekend, anything could happen. But I think in general, you're going to see lower volume, lower volatility, and then, you know, when the ETFs get back into the market, you know, when the equity markets open Monday morning, that's when the big moves have been happening. And I think that's going to be the trend.
Which is
So,
funny because that was the exact opposite for the longest time.
yeah, there was a lot of times where we would get wild. It was a little frustrating. You get maybe a wild run up on Bitcoin all weekend long, but by the time you could trade it Monday morning in the equities, as far as the Bitcoin miners went, it gave it all back, just as the market's opening. So that was the old trend. We complained about that for a long time.
Interesting, Tom.
So let's see. I had some other stuff that's going on. So can we have an article that has it's political adjacent, but it's Bitcoin related? Are we allowed to discuss?
Ripple witching is next Friday on the June 21st. A lot of volatility surrounding that date. Whoa.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't even know what that means, but wow.
That's multiple options are expiring all on that Friday. So those tend to be, we got to see. So thanks whoever pointed that out. And then you kind of got to look, where's
Seeker.
Max Payne going to be, for those options. And we don't always hit Max Payne. That's not a given. But it's something to be aware of and pay attention to. But before I get to this, I want to go back because I kind of didn't talk about this. I showed this. This is this week. So these are the Bitcoin miners this week. So for anybody who felt like, this was a boring week and, so you'll see down at the bottom, Bitcoin is as of the close of the equity markets today, Bitcoin was down 5% on the week. Look what the Bitcoin miners did. BitDeer off to the races. And I think this was on their press release last week, which we'll talk about again. I was very skeptical of that. The market appears to not be skeptical of that. BitDeer up 36%. Core Scientific up 33%. They continue their run. They've now tripled in a very short period of time. I have this both ways. I got the microcaps and nanocaps still on this one. TerraWolf up 27%, Iris Energy up 26%, Cipher up 23%, Bitfarms up 20%. Remember, Bitcoin was down 5%. For all those weeks where the opposite was happening, the first 3.5 months of the year, Bitcoin was up, the Bitcoin miners was down. It started to feel hopeless. But I'm going to switch next to that chart where we kind of called the bottom on April 16th and show you what's happened since then. But, I mean, this is what grade would you give this week? I mean, this is kind of a B+ or an A. You've got
for the miners versus Bitcoin. Yeah.
Right, for the Bitcoin miners. Obviously, for Bitcoin, it's struggled. It's still inside of its range. It's looking like maybe it's starting to move to the lower end of its range. So not the greatest week for Bitcoin, but to see this kind of price action, I mean, pick your miner. Of the 8 that I've identified as the 8 that I think are the strong 8, and then there's a group of 4 after that. So there's a total of 12 that we're following, and I'll show you which 12 those are next. Most of those had a really good week. So let's go to, I want to go to where's the... So first we'll show, this is prior to this week. So that April 16th day, we kind of called this as the bottom for the Bitcoin miners. Since April 16th, not including this week, you can see these moves. Core Scientific up 194%. Again, not including. So I will update these charts as always on the weekends and include this week. Some of them I do update in real time at the end of the day, Friday. By the end of the weekend, I'll update them all. But, 194%, Iris Energy up 153% prior to this weekend. Both of these were up huge. If we go back and look, let's see. Iris Energy was up 26%, and Core Scientific was up 33%. That's on top of these numbers. So Core Scientific up over 200%. And remember, 200% up is a triple. So in 2 months, Core Scientific has tripled. So for those of you who hold Core Scientific, congratulations. Iris Energy is getting close to a triple in just this 2-month window. That's not from its bottom. And then if we look, so if I go just to the ones This is year to date. We now have, if you remember, just 3 weeks ago, all but every single Bitcoin miner except for one was in the red year to date. And this chart was a train wreck. And now all of a sudden, you now have 4 Bitcoin miners that are outperforming Bitcoin year to date. So, a month ago, these were not only underperforming Bitcoin, but other than CleanSpark, for the first 5 months of the year, CleanSpark was, 50% or more better than the second place Bitcoin miner year to date this year. Now all of a sudden you'll see 3 of them have passed that. Core Scientific up 86% year to date. Iris up 85% year to date. TeraWolf 63%. CleanSpark 61%. That's all compared to Bitcoin's 56. So 56 is still a great year, but you now have Bitcoin miners starting to outperform. Cipher went into the green. So those are all the ones. 2 weeks ago, there were 4 we thought were going into the green. They've now all gone into the green and had massive runs. But you're going to see BitDeer flipped green. They're now up 1%. Bitfarms is down only 1%. So if they can rally, and then you've got some in striking distance. The one to me that's a gigantic disappointment, and again, I'm not selling. This is one of my bigger positions. Riot is down 32%. So out of kind of what I consider the big 8, Riot's is the worst performer so far this year. Marathon is lagging down 17%. So these were the 2 biggest by market cap. CleanSpark jumped into the middle of these 2. So CleanSpark is now bigger than Riot by market cap. But these 2 are still lagging behind, and Riot certainly even more so. And then you'll see a lot of these are in really bad shape, which is why if I switch over to here, so you're going to see these are my 12 that I will be following on a going forward basis. And my 8 that I think are the breakout are in no particular order: Core Scientific, Iris Energy, TeraWolf, CleanSpark, Cipher, Bitfarms, Marathon, Riot. So to me, that's the top 8 Bitcoin miners. Now, those are not the top 8 performing Bitcoin miners. Like we just talked about, Marathon and Riot are lagging. So then you have 4 more that I'm kind of up in the air on. BitDeer, which has been on a massive run, they've now gone green. Hut, which we'll talk about. Hive, and then you've got Hive down 35%. Bit Digital down 37%. I don't own either one of these. I may do some swing trading on these. Not financial advice. I'm not recommending that, of course. But I think these companies have some potential. Chris Dominator said, Tom, just sell Riot and move on. So I don't want to sell my Riot and move on. I've held my Riot for years. So, unless something bad happens, I'm still expecting for Riot to be a big winner. But I don't, you can't get mad that I'm pointing. So I like to point this out. These aren't my numbers. They're the numbers. So anybody who's mad at me for these numbers, they're not mine. This is what happened. So I always try to remember that, because a lot of people have emotion. And there's a couple of different things I was going to talk about with emotion in trading, because I do see so many people acting, reacting, and potentially trading on emotion. And that's exactly what big money wants you to do. That's what everything they do is to get you to trade on your emotions, and you just can't do it. You got to have a plan, and you got to stick to the plan. And, part of the plan is to be flexible, and if circumstances change, you got to adapt. But, trading on emotion is, you may get lucky, but otherwise, it's a mistake. That's my personal feeling. What are your thoughts on that, George?
I'm just wondering which one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are going to be on the other side and probably be higher than some of them. And the only one I think is Riot. I mean, Marathon too, Riot and Marathon. So it seems like to me, Marathon went out early, like last year, and now everybody else is starting to catch up to Marathon. And then now what I think is going to happen is there's going to be another breakout for Marathon and probably Riot.
I think you're 100% right, George. And one of the things that happened was at one point, Marathon and Riot, their market caps were 5 or 10 or 15 times some of these other companies.
Right.
So I think a lot of people, including institutional money, started to see a lot of opportunity in the Core Scientifics, Iris Energy, TerraWolf, CleanSpark. And CleanSpark moved first because they were the first one to really execute their growth plan. They grew. A lot of people have nice growth plans. Iris Energy now, has executed massively on their growth plan. So, these companies didn't move randomly. There were reasons, but I do think you're right. There will be, and I don't think the money's going to pull out of these, but I do think there'll be a rotation where, it was a lot of these were lagging and it was their turn to catch up. And I don't think their runs are necessarily done, but I do believe you're right. At some point, it's going to get back to Marathon and Riot. Obviously, they will have to execute in a positive way, but if they do, there's still a lot of run left in those companies. Nobody has the balance sheet that Marathon and Riot does. The next closest, CleanSpark's put themselves in the conversation. There's 3 of these companies that are just significantly financially bigger than the rest of the companies. And, Marathon and Riot in particular have north of $1 billion of liquidity. Riot has no debt at all. Correct me if they have like an insignificant, 0.1% of their assets debt, but I think that they have 0. So, these are strong companies. Riot has a hodl position of 8,000. Marathon has a hodl position over 17,000. So these are super strong companies. And I think there is a lot of room ahead, and just from those hodl positions, as Bitcoin plays out the rest of its bull market, they're going to move on that piece of the puzzle, if nothing else. But I do think you're going to see a lot of execution.
The way you could come up with some type of metric where, how gold, and they're talking about like mining gold and how much gold there actually is, and then how much the miners are, gold miners, to like a valuation to where Bitcoin would go to. Does that kind of make sense what I'm saying?
Can you say that again?
So you have gold miners, right? You have silver miners, gold miners.
Right.
And then you have
traditional
the total, right. Then you have the total amount of all these companies together. They have a certain market cap that mine gold. And then we have how many pounds of gold that's out there circulating and trading. Is there a correlation between that market cap of all those gold miners to the actual market cap of gold?
So I have not done that analysis. And of course, there's a pretty finite universe of Bitcoin miners. There's a monumental amount of companies that mine gold. And it gets a little more confusing because most of the companies that mine gold mine several other precious metals. But it would be an interesting comparison. And
because looking at it, it's probably very small. It's probably a very small percentage compared to these other commodities.
For Bitcoin versus the other commodities?
Bitcoin versus Bitcoin mining. So you got like Bitcoin's worth $1 trillion, right? Roughly 1.2 now, 1.3.
Let's go. While you're doing that, I'll pull that up on.
And then you have the Bitcoin miners, which are they even worth 20 billion yet? I mean, are we at 20? I don't think we're there.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they are a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction. Now, these, of course, are the publicly traded Bitcoin miners.
Right.
But they are making up more and more of the overall network. They're pretty, they're not half, but I think they're somewhere approaching a third of the overall network now. And with gigantic growth plans. So, yeah, the market cap of the Bitcoin miners is tiny compared to the market cap. Bitcoin, like you said, they're just about $1.3 trillion market cap right now. And the Bitcoin miners, let's just round off and say they're at 20 billion, all of them added up, put together. And by the way, they were at like 2 billion in November of 2022 after the FTX situation. All of them put together.
Right. So that's already been a 10. If you just did an ETF that traded just the is there one?
No. Well, there's some hybrid stuff, and there's a few that are very heavy Bitcoin miners. But the other thing is there was a lot of dilution in that. So, the ETF wouldn't have 10x, but it would have. Let me go to a chart and just let me take a look at something real quick. I want to bring something up because
Tom and I do a lot of show prep, and just, all these questions. Yeah, we never talked about them before.
it's all random. So if we look at this, I think it's important to remember this was 2023. This is what the Bitcoin miners did in 2023 because, so many people feel like these are awful investments. Core Scientific was up. Now, this is an unusual situation. They went into bankruptcy. They were trading for pennies. They were up 1,800% last year. But let's even put them aside. Cipher was up 638% last year. BitDigital 605%. Marathon 587% in 2023. So Bitfarms 561%. So when you look at Iris Energy and CleanSpark, let's look at those two because those were two of the top performers this year. So if we look at, these are companies that were up 472% and 441% in 2023. And if you fast forward this year, they are now up, Iris Energy's up 85% and CleanSpark's up, is that the other one we were looking up? 61%. So that's on top of 400+% moves last year. This 86% is on top of an 1,800% move last year. Now, that is an anomaly, but you can see, the fact that these are catching up and doing what they're supposed to, if you dollar cost averaged in, a lot of people say, well, they're not even back to where they were, in the previous cycle, which is true. So if all you did was hold and you bought, and through the entire crypto winter, you didn't buy any of these stocks, then you're still behind. But if you averaged in over time, these stocks have made tremendous moves to the upside, some of them. Some of them are still lagging, which is why I am kicking 6 or 7 of them off of my list because, the majority, there are a few people that want to follow them, but the majority of them, the 12 that we just honed in on, which is these 12, the drop off from 12 to 13 is drastic in market cap, in exahash, in every other way. Most of the rest of these turn into microcap or nano cap stocks. They're at 1 exahash or 2 exahash. They're at, 50 or 60 or 70 million dollars when you're looking at versus 1 or 2 or 3 billion dollar companies. They're just two totally different animals, so much so that putting them all on the same chart doesn't make sense. Maybe I'll have 2 charts, the big ones and the small ones, but they don't belong on the same chart, I don't think, anymore. And most of you, when we did a poll, agreed. Midway, thanks for the super chat. If Bitcoin is still just 65,000 or less at the end of June, will that hurt any of the FASB holding miners to totally mess up their Q2 earnings? So they will have to take, a markdown, because I think, at the end of the first quarter, it was like 71,000. So yes, they will have to, if they're hodling, they'll have to take a write down for the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, the market to market, which is, if it's at 65,000, but that's not going to be a very big number, for most of these companies. And there's very few companies really hodling. You've got Marathon at, 17,000 plus. You've got Hut at 9,000 plus. You've got Riot at 8,000. You've got CleanSpark at 6,000. Those are 4. And then there's a big drop off. The next biggest company is somewhere in the 2,000 range. So, if you're holding 800 or 1,000 or 2,000 Bitcoin and you got to mark them down to 65,000, yes, that will show up in the financial statements, but it won't be a massive hit. Conversely, if somehow, we run in the last 2 weeks, which it does not seem like we're going to do, but I do think we'll end up in the ballpark. And I also think that, investors know, they know long before the financials come out, we know what this adjustment's going to be. So I do think it gets built in long before earnings are released. I think the more important stuff, the more important than that in my mind, and not that that's not important, that is a valid point, especially let's say if for some reason it closes at 59,000 on June 30th, even if that's just, the bottom of whatever the dip is, that would be, double the markdown. But the good news on the flip side of this is this quarter ended June 30th. That will be the highest average price for Bitcoin in any quarter by far in the history of Bitcoin. So the first quarter was the highest, and the second quarter will be significantly higher. Now, the amount of Bitcoin mined is going to be less because we're post-halving. So May was a pure month post-halving, and if we take a look, so if we look at May, these are the May results. And so one thing I do want to point out right off the bat, it is now June 14th. HUT has not released their May results.
I was going to ask you that. Still no?
They released them on the 6th day of the month last month. So it's now the 14th. All these other companies have long since, most of these released over a week ago. A lot of them on the first 1 or 2 or 3 business days. HUT still has not released. They are going to be, at the bottom of this list. They, unless something bizarre happened, they will be some number under Hive. They, doing the math, they'll probably be under 100. But by the flip side, I leave them on here, and I leave them as a part of the Big 12 because they do have 9,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They have other streams of revenue, and we're going to wait and see what happens with them. But I do think it's noteworthy. It's not a good sign that we are now on June 14th, and they have not released their May operations. That probably, they certainly, weren't stellar results, or they would have given them to us. In any event, you're going to see the change from month over month. So April was 2/3 pre-halving. March was 100% pre-halving. So you can see, some minor moves to the downside in April. And then in May, most of these were down in the neighborhood of 40 to 44%. A couple that outperformed, BitDeer was only down 31%. And again, remember, this is because of the halving. And Marathon was only down 28%. That was the best one on the list. And that was more a function of the fact that they had so many machines offline in February and March and April. And now they're starting to put a lot of their machines back online in May. If they did so in June, these are really strong numbers. You can see Marathon at 616, that's over 160 more Bitcoin than the next closest Bitcoin miner, which was Core Scientific at 447 and CleanSpark close behind at 417. And then there's a monumental drop off from there. But some of these companies will be catching up because they do have some big growth plans. So my expectation, as I've said a couple of times, is that I think these companies need to get back to pre-halving numbers. So these March numbers, I think the companies that are going to be the big success stories, I think by December, will be mining more Bitcoin in the month of December, even post-halving with half the rewards, than they did in March of 2024. So, that's the target. That's what they want to be. So obviously, if you're doing that and, Bitcoin's up significantly, I think you're going to see a good, the second quarter is going to be funky. So midway to your point, not in addition to a potential write-down they're going to have to take for their Bitcoin on their balance sheet. It's going to be a little funky because they will have mined less Bitcoin. Their cost per coin will go up due to the halving. So there's an adjustment period. Kevin K, thanks for the super chat. Kevin K said, so Trump released a truth specifically on the value of miners for our national security. USA made everyone turn in their gold at one time. Same here. So I do think it's important. Things that affect our investments are important, and to take a look at them and judge what they may mean to our investments, it's highly unusual. If you look, there's one of our presidential candidates basically made a statement that only impacts the Bitcoin miners, and I think in a massively positive way. I mean, how many statements are out there that target, this is a very small industry. So I'm going to go to that right now because I think it is important. And again, I know some of you may like Donald Trump. Some of you may despise Donald Trump, but he is going to be running for president. And, we got to be paying attention to what these parties, are thinking about Bitcoin and, in this case specifically, the Bitcoin miners, because they're going to affect our investments. So And I'll show you another article of somebody that I do think in their mind did what I'm talking about. They just saw the word Donald Trump and they had some radical interpretation of this. So Donald Trump says he wants the remaining Bitcoin to be made in the all remaining Bitcoin to be made in the USA. So
that's huge.
That's a big statement, but I want to just clarify a little. Like, this is a political statement. So a lot of people are taking this literally. There's a lot of Bitcoin purists that are taking this literally, going, wait a second. If 100% of all of the Bitcoin are mined in one region, that is bad, for the decentralized nature of our network. So remember, this is a political statement. He doesn't literally expect that somehow the Bitcoin miners were going to mine 100% of every single Bitcoin from now until the end of time. What this is saying, and I don't think you guys can put in the comments if you think I'm wrong, this is a pro Bitcoin miner statement. This is saying that, that administration would intend to be Bitcoin miner friendly. So whether you like that administration or hate that administration, and they may never end up even being in office, but the fact is one of the two parties here has come out, and when one comes out, either side that it's on, it brings the other one a little more potentially towards the center as well, right? Because everybody's fighting for every vote. But here's what this is really about, in my opinion. Well, not in my opinion. He's said this many times. The Republican presidential candidate sees Bitcoin as the last line of defense against a central bank digital currency, or a CBDC. So Trump has long since said, he will not allow a CBDC. Now, the president unilaterally cannot make that decision one way or the other, but certainly they have a lot of influence on where that policy goes. The Fed has specifically said they're not going to create a CBDC. Jerome Powell has said, unless Congress passes a bill, we're not doing this. So some of you may believe Jerome Powell, some of you may not believe that, but that is what he has said. So I do literally think it would take an act of Congress to get a CBDC. A lot of people think this is coming. I don't like the concept of a CBDC. Can we do a poll, George? Are people in favor of a CBDC or against it?
Can you do it? Because I'm trying to list a house and something went stupid.
Absolutely.
Something stupid.
Sorry, guys, just give me a second to type. So we'll keep it simple. So essentially, this would be a CBDC is a digital dollar. And there are some people pushing for a digital dollar. Some people like this, some people hate it. And so that's what this statement is all about. And this policy for Trump has evolved over time because he was a little bit anti-Bitcoin at one point. But the other thing I wanted to point out in here was, let's see if it's in this one. Okay. Bitcoin mining may be our last line of defense against the CBDC. Politics. It will help us be energy dominant, Trump said in a late night post on social media. So this is where there's a big divide. Does Bitcoin mining help our energy grid or hurt our energy grid? So this argument is being made, I think, two big points. One, let's avoid a CBDC. Number two, Bitcoin is a mechanism, and we on this channel and Bitcoin purists do believe that Bitcoin can be a mechanism to help grow the electricity grid around the world, particularly in developing nations where some places can't afford to have energy at all. A giant customer base like a Bitcoin miner, first of all, providing the infrastructure and then providing, the customer being a customer to buy the energy, could bring energy to a lot of places that don't have it, could stabilize the grid in places that it's unstable or insufficient. So that is an argument that's out there. Whether you believe that argument or not, is up for debate. But that's what's going on here. That's what this is about. But for Trump, mostly it's about the CBDC. So, you know, a lot of people, I don't know a lot of people, some people, here, I've got another article, and I highlighted Trump's appeal to Bitcoin miners is a wake-up call for crypto to stay apolitical. So, to me, okay, fine, but I'm just going to highlight a sentence in here. And this is a kind of an editorial, so this is an individual person. This was on Coinbase, but it was, you know, they disclaimed that, you know, this is not the views of Coinbase. This person said, Trump literally calling for all Bitcoin miners to be located in a single region suggests a profound ignorance of what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it's powerful. So, to me, this is a person who just hears Trump and they think, gotta be bad, and they go to some weird place, because I don't think anybody really thinks that this statement was that he's going to try to do some global thing to get 100% of all of the Bitcoin miners in only the United States. First of all, that is well outside of the ability of even the president of the United States. Even if the president of the United States, Congress, and everyone in the United States all agreed, they couldn't do this if they wanted to. So, and I don't think it's a reasonable interpretation. And my point of this is clouding your judgment. Again, I think this is somebody who's letting their own political beliefs cloud their judgment of what's going on here, right? I mean, if good things are happening in our industry, we should embrace that. And, you know, yes, we try to be very apolitical on this channel, but, you know, to have a presidential candidate specifically, essentially say something fantastic about Bitcoin miners, I interpret that as a positive thing. You guys may agree with me, you may disagree with me. And again, if this, so take out this word. If this had said Biden, I'd feel the exact same way. It'd be like, great. I mean, he's the actual president. So, you know, you got to take a win when you get a win. That's my opinion.
That's great. I'm trying to list my house with Zillow. They're like, oh, send me your Google verification code. And now I got 3 freaking people from Zillow like, oh, give me the code, give me the code, give me the code. It's like, oh my goodness. How does a company like this stay in business? You know what I mean? They're that incompetent.
While we're doing this, wasn't on the chart. Bitcoin is pumping huge.
Oh, yeah, I meant to tell you that. Yeah, I told you, baby. 5 o'clock pump is real.
The 5 o'clock pump is real. We're now where I thought, you know, we're not going to close over 66,000. Now I'm sitting here thinking, could we close over 67,000? I'm getting greedy. Sometimes these runs pull right back, but I think it looks like maybe the other thing is happening. You know, we get a lot of these. So we'll see if that plays out that way. It's, you know, it's pretty close to doing that right now, but we'll see where it goes. We're all the way back, by the way. Remember, this gold line, this is where we were yesterday. So, like, for all the fanfare, we just touched the exact line where we were when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday. Kevin K said Trump, that's not the one I wanted to read. Somebody pointed out that Trump sat down with a lot of the Bitcoin miner executives this week. So I think that was important. And then I want to show conversely, ERCOT CEO, and ERCOT is, you know, this is the Texas power grid. Texas has its own power grid. Most states in the United States do not act this way, but Texas does have this. So the CEO of ERCOT says Texas power grid needs larger increase than expected to handle AI and Bitcoin mining. And this is a little bit of bashing. Well, not a little bit. Texas recently revised estimates of how much capacity its grid will need, citing the demand for AI and Bitcoin mining. So I would point out, as you guys can see and as you know, the Bitcoin miners are building their own infrastructure to mine Bitcoin. So they're buying power, but they're building the infrastructure for it. So they are a customer, and they're all participating in curtailment and kicking power back to the grid. Now, believe it or not, it's actually, even with Riot, which got, in 1 month, they got $30 million of energy credits. That was actually even insignificant to the amount of energy that Texas needed to be pulled back to the grid. So, you know, it's I feel like this is another political thing. The political climate towards these two industries is souring because of the increased energy demands. And then they go on to say, well, Trump is doubling down on his support for mining. Okay, state senator said during the testimony that it was inherently unjust mining operations and AI data centers could move to the state to take advantage of its low cost of energy while everyday Texans were, quote, making tough decisions about costs. So you guys can say how you feel about that. Maybe, maybe I'm over giving more credit than is due to the miners, but as far as I can tell, it seems like the miners are helping to stabilize the Texas energy grid. And they're putting massive amounts of infrastructure into increasing the energy grid in Texas. But at the moment, there's a little bit of bashing in Texas going on of the Bitcoin miners. So you got some pro Bitcoin miner stuff going on out there. You've got some, anti Bitcoin miner stuff going on out there. And I bring these up because obviously, our channel is about talking about Bitcoin miners. So this is what's going on.
We need a coalition for the Bitcoin miners in Texas.
Well, and there are many Bitcoin miners that have huge facilities in Texas. So
you know what? Sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm sorry. But you know what's really sad is that stupid people will hear what that guy just said about the price of electric, and they won't ever research it, and they're blaming Bitcoin mining and AI for it.
Yeah, that's a big narrative going on out there. I consider that FUD. In my opinion, that is the kind of FUD we've been hearing for years. Oh, Bitcoin miners are stealing all the electricity in the world. But we know if you dig into the publicly traded Bitcoin miners, they're very green. They strive to be as energy as efficient as possible. It's core to their business model. Yes, they do use energy. I mean, if you're being honest, ASIC miners require a massive amount of energy. But they're also building out a lot of infrastructure. So, Robin's saying follow the Bollinger Bands on Bitcoin. So the Bollinger Bands are starting to squeeze. So and that typically tends to mean there's a volatile move ahead. So that's why I was getting a little, thanks for bringing that up. I was getting a little nervous as we were breaking to the downside because, so when the Bollinger Bands squeeze, we can get 10-15% move in one direction or the other, and it's non-directional. It just means that a big move is coming. So a lot of times, that move tends to be in whatever direction the momentum has been in. But, if we're squeezing and starting to see a move down, that would lend itself to, what George and I can't remember who else, I think Cleanspark 100 were talking about. Maybe, maybe going down and testing 59,000 on that squeeze. Robert Anderson said, ERCOT blame deflecting regardless. Texas is shaky for miners. Yeah, regardless of the Bitcoin miners, Texas has had a bit of an energy problem for several years now, which is kind of wild since it's, the energy center, certainly of the United States. And they can't seem to find a way to get energy for their own state.
It's kind of sad when you think about it.
Robin is saying, why do you think Riot wants to buy Bitfarms? At $2.30, I think, I think any company, any of the Bitcoin miners that could afford it would buy Bitfarms at $2.30. That's why I don't think it was a good faith bid. And that doesn't mean they don't want to buy them. They may have a strategy. Only Riot knows what their number is in their head and what their strategy is in total. But, together, if they were able to buy Bitfarms, they would be the biggest company. They would be the biggest Bitcoin miner by the end of 2024, even bigger than Marathon. So, I think that is their concept with their own growth plans to get to 40 exahash. And now here you've got Bitfarms just released, they want to get to 35 exahash in 2025. So that'd be 75 exahash. So I think that's the concept. If they could find a way to buy this for the right price, it's inorganic, but, these are mostly new machines. Almost all of Bitfarms' fleet is new machines. They're operationally run very well. To George's point, obviously at the very top of the organization, they fired their CEO. They just had one of their founders voted off of the board of directors. Like, something's not quite right over there. And I think Riot's just trying to see if they can seize an opportunity. And you can see this has now clearly been classified as a hostile takeover. So I think they're just trying to see if they can get it. And we'll see where this ends. I don't even know how to guess. Robin said, I live in Texas. It's a mess. It's the Texas grid. We're at 99 likes. If you enjoy this content, do us a favor, smash the like button. We get us to 100 likes. It's much appreciated. It helps the live stream out in real time. George, you wouldn't believe me if I told you not to sidetrack, but after that guy left and said the machine is perfect, there's a 100% chance it's fixed. It's not working right now. I'll take a look at it after the stream, but it's boiling in here. We'll see.
Are you? I got the general manager's email. I'm going to send him an email right now.
Good. It's
freaking
good help is hard to find. I'm just complaining about my AC system. People down here in Southwest Florida seem to have a hard time getting things done for some reason. So
7.
Kevin K said, but when you buy another company's crap, you get their problems too. So, but I think, although, the problems at management go away if Riot buys Bitfarms, because Bitfarms management will cease to exist. So, and that's really, they're having a problem with their board of directors, their CEO, but all that will see, Bitfarms will cease to exist if Riot buys them. So, that's the baggage they carry. Operationally speaking, Ben and company are I think just about the best in the business. So from, and assets, what they bring with them, I think is spectacular. Kevin K said it's like that everywhere. That's what I hear. It's tough to get anything done anymore. It's wild. And Seeker said, are you surviving the rain and the flooding? So at the end of my street, there's some flooding. There's a lot of flooding throughout Florida, but I've actually been okay. It's not as bad as the national news is making it out. Although there are certain places that, I saw some stuff in Tampa where there was a whole shopping district that was a little bit underwater. So and we did get, it rains in the summer here. But this was pretty serious rain. It seems like it's over though. But thanks for asking. So just to get to some other stuff that went on, some big news. MicroStrategy increases convertible note. So MicroStrategy is buying more Bitcoin. So they put out a thing that they were going to do a $500 million convertible note with $75 million of options for the issuer. So that would have been $575 million. So I said immediately when that happened, every single time they do this, the demand outweighs that and they end up doing more than they said they were going to do. So that happened again. So $700 million. And of course, when they raise, and this is at 2% interest, and I think it's due in 2032. Let me see if that's true or not. $2.25 yield due in June of 2032. So, and of course he'll go out and buy Bitcoin with this immediately. So basically he's betting on the fact that he's going to be able to buy Bitcoin. He's going to borrow money to buy Bitcoin at $65,000. And, when this comes due in 2032, what's Bitcoin going to be worth? Everybody will argue that, but most people would say 500,000, a million, more. I won't say most people. Bitcoin people and crypto people would argue that that's likely to be, 10 or 20 or 30x that. So, this has been the business model for them. It's working very well. So this will be some buying pressure that comes in. I don't know if they'll do this over the weekend or if they wait until the Monday. The Bitcoin obviously trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But here's some potential buying pressure. In other news, for those of you, I saw a bunch of people talking about Ethereum in the comments. So Ethereum ETFs should be fully approved by September, says SEC Chair Gensler. So unlike the Bitcoin ETFs, when the Bitcoin ETFs got approved, pretty much the next day they were trading. So we talked about the ETF approvals. The other schedule, and I'm forgetting what it's called right now, was not yet approved. And they said it could be weeks, it could be months before this gets approved. So now we're getting a little clarity that Gary Gensler is talking about September. So this will be a bounce, in my opinion, for Ethereum because, all we've gotten for Ethereum right now is it was like a 20-something% bounce on the news, and it actually preceded the news. So obviously somebody knew 2 days ahead of time. But that was just trading the news. We haven't actually gotten the inflows. These ETFs are not up and running and buying Ethereum yet. So there's a bunch of inflows ahead. So I think this is bullish for you guys. Those of you following the channel know I'm not a huge Ethereum person, but this is positive news for Ethereum, in my opinion. September, it's still a couple of months away, but at least there's a date on it. We can start to know what to expect.
I'm doing it again.
What are you doing?
I'm taking my profit on CleanSpark. It just got there.
Nice.
And I'm only going to take half of it because I want to keep half.
That's fair.
Because this time I doubled the amount that I normally make every day.
Oh, nice. So George still day trading after hours at the end of the day Friday.
It's fun.
So Kevin K is saying similar to the Twitter takeover. That's the way I understand the Riot and Bitfarms thing. So at least on the Twitter takeover, there was a pretty decent premium, 50 or 60% premium to the price it was trading at. Although I was surprised that ended up going through. And if you guys remember, that was a saga that unfolded over months and months. So that's what I do think. I think this is going to be a saga that plays out over months because both sides seem to have dug in, and, it's hard. Bitfarms is now trading at $2.87. Who knows? I don't know. I think it's going to be a while before we know what's what. All right, we can close this. How do you feel about a CBDC, which is a digital dollar in the U.S.? 84% hate it, 16% like it. So the vast majority are not in favor of a digital dollar. I would be in the hate it category. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I mean, but let's think. It's okay to have, don't you agree? As long as we don't get rid of the dollar, the cash that we have.
That's the slippery slope.
Yeah. It's kind of like the video cameras for speeding in the school districts. And they're going to say, oh, we made so much money. Now let's put video cameras everywhere to catch all the speeders.
Right. So, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to happen. I think for a while, a lot of people thought this was inevitable that we'd be getting a digital dollar. I don't know that this is going to happen or not. I think it's a ways out if it does. Let's see if I had any other big things. I don't want to end early, but it is getting really hot in here.
Cold.
Huh?
I said, I'm kind of cold.
You're cold? Congratulations. I would like to be cold.
I'll get you a ticket.
Kevin K said, looking back on the Hut 8 merger, since they merged with a non-public company, I think that's what caught up with them and drove their stock lower for a while after the merger. Well, right, we got to take a look at the books and records, but I really feel with Hut 8, I mean, we're now 7 months post-merger, and they have not bought one single Bitcoin mining machine. So they were a Bitcoin mining company. Now, I know they want to be other things in addition to that, but when you watch their peers, some of which have plans to double or triple or quadruple or even more than quadruple the amount of exahash mining Bitcoin, Hut 8 hasn't bought a single Bitcoin miner to my knowledge. They haven't put out a press release that they have. In fact, the amount of exahash they have running has gone down almost every single month, several months in a row. So I think until they do something and give us a little more clarity, here's how we're going to be a bigger. They did say they have the intention to buy more Bitcoin miners, but the intention to buy more is not buying more, and it's getting pretty late, right? I think a couple of companies, CleanSpark most notably, got a big boost based on the fact that they got that exahash online months before the halving and mined and hodled a massive amount of Bitcoin. So, here's the same thing. Are some of these, if you're going to start buying things now and getting them online in Q3 or Q4 of 2025 into 2026, will you have missed the entire bull market? So that would be my question. Sooner is better getting these machines up and running online, where if things play out, the next year should be good stuff for Bitcoin. And so as an extension, hopefully good stuff for the Bitcoin miners. But if you're not growing at all, the first thing is the hash rate, or sorry, not the hash rate, the reward is cut in half. So if you've added nothing, you just cut yourself in half. But I will say, I want to take a look at just one other thing because it's worth looking at. Since the halving, we had the first adjustment to the difficulty level was down 5.6%. So we went from 630 average exahash down to 595, and then it popped up a little to 603, but still under the pre-halving, and then a very small adjustment down to 599. So that's 3 adjustments, and we're still well under where we were. And if you look at what's happening in this cycle, so this tracks the current cycle, we're more than halfway through to the next difficulty level. So, sometime 5-6 days from now, we're going to get another one of these, and we're right at this 10-minute mark. So it looks like we may get another basically 0 sideways adjustment. So that's pretty good. If we get a month or 2 or 3 for these Bitcoin miners where the network isn't growing, because remember, the network was growing massively. Yes, you do see some red, but look at these. Up 7%, up 7%, up 8%, up 5.9%. The network was in the year previous to that, the network doubled. So to go sideways for a couple of months, I know a lot of people thought it was going to have a huge pullback. So it didn't have that, but it is going sideways, and that is helping the Bitcoin miners that are growing and getting more machines online. That's going to help them. So that's good for the Bitcoin miners. George, you got any? I do want to wrap it up just on account of
I'm shorting Zillow
weather.
on Monday. I'm shorting Zillow on Monday. I just told the lady too. I gave her 4 freaking phone numbers, and she's like, "I can't verify you own the house."
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, well, okay. I just randomly like going and listing people's homes in other states, and she can't understand. You know what I mean? I was just like, dude, I give you 4 of my phone numbers, and she's saying, "Oh, they're blacklisted." I don't know what that means.
I don't either. That falls under the category of it's just hard to get anything done in this world.
Right.
I sound old when I say that. I realize that.
Tom, I will know. I know what I want to say. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Good.
We make the country turn and burn. Well, maybe that was just a lady I met. I made her burn. Sorry. But but Tom, happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to you, George.
And I will be calling. You want to call them? This is crazy. 100% it's going to work.
Yeah, 100%. That was his last words he said before he walked out the door.
Listen to what it says. If you try to verify cell phone numbers with multiples, it is not possible to verify anything you don't know. That it is better to post the post with anyone. Can you understand that?
I don't know. That sounds like gibberish.
Hang on. Are you English? Okay. Hang on. She says she works at Ukraine.
For real?
Sorry. No.
You're just talking.
Yeah, customer service. It should not be called customer service. I'm part of crime family. It's the Goodfellas, you know.
Midway
I
said
guess
we're shorting Zillow and AC repair stocks on Monday.
yeah, unbelievable. So, all right, Tom. I'm sorry about the AC, buddy.
It is what it is. We'll see
Great
what
stream.
happens.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. And to reiterate George's point, happy Father's Day to all the fathers. So thanks a lot, everybody. Bitcoin, hopefully we're over 66,000, so we'll see. We had a nice after-hours run during the stream. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.
Before you go, hang on.
Go ahead, George.
Before you hang up, now she's ripping on me. She goes, "You are very lacking in knowledge. You say yes to all, but your post you can't verify. I try to verify your post. Now impossible. It's like now you're gonna rip on me. You wanted a Google ID. Oh my, wow. Now you might as well insult your customers, right? Sorry, guys.
I would
See
say
ya.
you might want to try it. Give them the weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.
See ya.